Hey friends, so today from the Homeschool archives, this was requested of me several times throughout last year, and I think before that. So I am finally bringing you my notes and overview of the core knowledge middle school science. It differs a bit from the lower levels. So let me explain all that. Let's go through it all. And I have an example of grade 8 here for you, but you will see how it progresses with 6, 7, and 8. So let's get into it. Welcome back, friends. If you're new here, my name is Arlene and this is Arlene & Co. I am so glad you're spending time with me today. If you're new to this space, I talk about a lot about books, literature, coastal living, and a little bit of homeschool. So let's get into it because that is the chapter we are in today. And I have the core knowledge, which is available for free. This I printed from the free, and I went ahead and printed a sample lesson so we can go over it. You guys know how I do this. I purchased, but you don't have to purchase anything. If you're new to core knowledge, it is available as a free download. You can print it yourself or you can use it digitally and just view it from your screen. We'll talk about all that just in case you're new to it. So this is the middle school. They do have elementary level sciences as well, which are also NGSS online and secular. This is going to be modeled after Open SciEd, which I have done a full webinar style video on. So if that seemed overwhelming to you, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you this is not teacher intensive still, because it is. But if that seemed overwhelming, but you still like the approach and it was something that you felt that was going to be good for your STEM kiddo, then this adds the little bit of the core knowledge sparkle to it. And I have mentioned this before in my all-in-one science vault curricula video where I went over all the sciences that I think are good for building up to high school level and which one is good for what kind of learners. So the purpose of this is so you guys can see a walkthrough of it, of how a lesson would work and which families this may match to. And that is a decision you'll have to make on your own as you view through this. So first, let me go over what is the portions of this. So I was actually already had packed this up. We are in the middle of moving, and I know so many of you had asked, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get to this for a while because our home is not ready. We're going to be displaced for a while. This is going into storage. So I actually went and dug it up from the box that it was in and dug out at least the readers for you, and then I printed some sample lessons so we can go over that. So let's get into it. Let me show you what I'm looking at for you right now. We're going to go over Unit 1, which is Contact Forces, and this is the Grade 8 bundle. Sorry about the glare, that will disappear in just a bit. So these are your readers, which are common. You'll see them across subjects with core knowledge. You'll see them in the language arts, you'll see them in the sciences, you'll see them in the history, you'll see them in all the little tokens. So this is the major difference between the Open SciEd one, is that it adds the readers to it, the science literacy part, and it also adds some workbooks along with it too that are pre-made for you. So if you like the look of Open SciEd, this is making it a bit more user-friendly for you. It is still teacher intensive, I will not lie to you. So this is not going to be a great fit for everyone, but if you're somebody that is like a science nerd like I am and don't mind the prep work, then this may be an option for you. So just for context, we did do a few of the units in connection with my youngest, which is now a freshman, high school, and my daughter is an 11th grader. So we did this level in collaboration with Oak Meadows Grade 8 Science, and I matched them up when they made sense. This is a standalone. Oak Meadow Science is a standalone. You do not need both. It just worked out better for us to combine certain elements and certain labs and things like that in that way. And we didn't do it with everything, but it worked out better. So that's the last portion of how we used it, but you definitely can use it as a standalone. And we have used individual units as a standalone. And actually towards the end of the year, of the school year, we did just core knowledge and not Oak Meadow. Here is the units. I have one of the booklets, which actually went into storage with his stuff, so I don't have it here, but here is Contact Forces, Sound Waves, Forces at a Distance, Genetics, and natural selection and common ancestry. So you have the integrated approach to science. The one that I am missing is Earth and Space. That was the one that was in his cart, so that what we're going to look at is the components. I have here the student procedure guide, and the student procedure guide is going to have their step-by-steps of what they're actually going to do, their hands-on activities. They're going to have the step-by-step process, so that once you present a lesson, you can go ahead and hand them this guide and they can follow it along if they're in that level of independence. If not, you guide them through it. Then the next part is the student work pages, and this is where they document their work or their notebook. We tend to use either a main lesson book or a notebooking method. We have always been that way. So typically these are questions that we just look at, unless it's like something like a diagram and things like that, that we would go ahead and use this and probably paste right on our notebooks just to keep everything together for portfolio purposes, a portfolio review. Then the next one is where we're going to start, and that is the teacher guide. This is where most people get confused, and a lot of the reasons why I was getting a few requests to go over this. So I have the example here of the contact forces. Why do things sometimes get damaged and when they hit each other? It always starts with a phenomena base. It's going to start with a driving question, basically with the idea that you do first and then you understand it, almost like the Waldorf feeling to it. Obviously there is some explanation, things like that to it, but just so you know that. All right, so when you start here, you're going to see a story map first. Let's go over our unit. Now, this is something that you can go ahead and order printed. I generally like to have my teacher's guide printed. I can print everything else except for the readers, but I like to make notes and do my planning with things there, with things printed like this. And because they're so hefty, each of these units, like the teacher guides, are like a decent size. All right, so you're gonna have a unit overview, a storyline, and a teacher background knowledge. This is something that is very unique to core knowledge, especially with this middle school science. It's gonna tell you what should be your background knowledge of what you should know and set you off so you don't fail, right? And you know before you go into the lesson and are well prepared. So you have the learning plan, routines, you have the first collection. So what happens when two things hit each other, what causes change in the motion of, and shape of colliding objects. Again, it's always going to start with a driving question. So you have collisions, bounce back, bend, brake, or push, kinetic energy and objects in contact, materials design and outcomes, and then structures and forces. And then you end here with collection 6, which is applying ideas about materials and forces. And then you have some teacher resources that are specific to this particular unit. Here you're going to have, before you begin, you're going to have some icons. This is going to spell everything out for you. So this part is going to be pretty familiar to you if you watch my video with Open SciEd. It's going to have some of the same elements, especially the story map, but they're add a different element to it, which is further explanation of walking you through it. And that's, like I said, the core knowledge sparkle. You have a unit overview, which is gonna like break everything down. This is not even the teacher background information. It's basically what you're going to be learning about. So plan and carry out investigations, analyze, interpret data to figure out that's all solid objects to a point that the forces between objects and collisions are always equal in size and opposite in direction. So again, is going to spell it all out for you. Because of this, has more prep work to it because you have more information to get through. It's not just like open and go and here you go. Now, I do know that some families use this just as a reader and add it to something else, and that is an option. But if you're using this as a full curricula, I'm showing you the components of that. So this is not your lesson plan. This is so you can see basically like your year at a glance, but this is a unit at a glance. That is what the unit storyline will indicate for you. So for example, here is also where you're going to have a pacing guide. So if you don't know, okay, how long am I supposed to do this? And this is where things get skipped when you just hand the child, okay, here's the reader, and you're going to answer the questions in it. You may do some activities or whatever, but you don't know how to pace it. That is going to be in here. So here you have some hands-on lab activities. This is very, very like exactly like the Open Sci Ed storyline, just a little bit of their touch. So hands-on lab activities, videos, or images, you're going to have those links there. There is an online resources file for each of the units that you will be able to see and download, data sets, readings, and computer interactives. So here, for example, lesson 1 is going to be 3 days. What happens when two things hit each other? This is the anchoring phenomenon. So this is where you're going to start. You start with this demonstration where you are explaining as you are demonstrating, so it makes a bigger impact and bigger connection before you get into the nitty-gritties of the science behind it. So that is one of the things with the NGSS online curricula that I really always appreciate. So phenomena or design problems, millions of homes are damaged a year in our country, and many of us have experienced such damage firsthand. We have a lot of experience where collision between two objects causes damage, also experiences where surprisingly does not. So thinking of it in two different ways, what we do and figure out. We model what we think might happen at the moment of impact and split second after a collision where something doesn't break. And then we consider what factors, and then we have the driving question board, which I'm going to show you. So in collision between two objects, the objects have to come into contact. Sometimes something is damaged, but not always. So here is how we represent it. So if you're using a board or maybe just a notebook, this is like an example of like showing you how you can present this lesson as well. And then it will tell you navigating to the next lesson. What is like, you know, the bridge between this one and the next. So that is how you would look at your storyline. So this is 3 days, this anticipates 2 days. Now keep in mind, this is written with a classroom setting in mind as well. So it may not take you this long because you don't have a classroom full of 25 kiddos. And then that's how it continues. Now you don't always have like a pictorial representation, and you don't always have to do every single portion either. But you know, that is there for you for your guidance. You have here like a little guide that says investigation. You have here putting pieces together, those little icons that tells you what to do next. So that is your storyline that tells you what this unit looks like as the big picture. The next part where you're going to be looking at is the teacher background knowledge, lab safety requirements for the investigation. Please follow these safety lessons, and it's going to spell those things out for you. So if you're unfamiliar with teaching a certain topic, it's going to have this section of background knowledge. Okay, where does this fall in the scope and sequence? Okay, so if you're teaching this in multiple levels, or you're teaching this family style, or you are jumping into this but you feel like you need some review, you can easily pull a previous unit if you feel like, okay, they need more support and we need to like bring it back. So why do things sometimes get damaged? This is the collision unit, the first unit in the 8th grade scope and sequence, but here it builds on from unit 6.2. that is from grade 6. How can containers keep stuff from warming up or cooling down? That is the cup design unit. Why does a lot of hail, rain, or snowfall at the same times and not others? These are things that build up to this concept for the grade 8. So if you feel like you're jumping into grade 7, grade 8, in your background knowledge, you're going to be able to see your previous scope and sequence of how this particular unit ties into exactly which unit of previous grades and how it like connects to those. And then here you say this these 8th grade units that follow this unit will build off the ECIs and develop in this unit. These are units that how can sound make something move. It will tell you what comes next and how it connects to it. So again, this is great information for you if you are looking to really deep dive and be involved not only in facilitating the lessons, but being knowledgeable in the lessons and being driving force. Now that's not always possible. I completely understand. Everybody's family dynamics is completely different, or your capacity to go ahead and juggle multiple subjects, multiple learners. But just presenting what we have here. So what phenomena are the context for this unit? You'll see that we talked about that. The core ideas, and then this is all just background knowledge for you the teacher to go over. Once you hit that, then you have guidance for developing your word wall. You can do that. We used to do this in younger grades, the word wall, but it has here words you earn versus words you encounter, and that is a thing that they describe here. So ways to express that they have earned the word, they had specific terms to their word wall, and then what those different vocabulary terms mean versus encounter, and the words that they earn. And if we go into those nitty-gritties, this video will be exceptional. Literacy, this is where this comes in, so let's go ahead and look at this. This is how you would be asking your student to read this and when, and you're going to see that when you see the actual lessons. And this, for example, if you've never seen one of the readers, collision, bounce back, all the collections that I explained to you before is also put on there. These are full pictures readers. That's why, to me, like, these are the least inexpensive ones if you buy them printed. I don't want to quote a price because I don't remember exactly, but I know that they're usually very inexpensive, and you can buy them in the bundle, and it's pretty like I said, inexpensive to get. But because they're full color pictures, unless your student is someone that can read from the screen, I would recommend purchasing this versus like printing them. But again, that's up to you. You'll have a little bar here telling you exactly where you are, vocabularies and words to know right on here. They'll be also highlighted throughout the text, and there will be points where it will stop them to ask certain questions. But again, that phenomena base will be there, and you will know exactly what pages to assign to read and when. But this is an example of what you would see with the first one, and you can see a little bit of the difference. This is familiar to you more if you've done the K through 5, but you can see a little bit of the difference in the depth of what you're looking at here. This is something that you don't see in the Open Sci-Ed part if you just did it straight from them. So just so you can see a little bit of this one, and I'll show you a glimpse of the other ones as well. And at the end you have the glossary, so anything that they need to look up, you can do that. The core vocabulary that we talked about, and here's your standard, whatever prerequisites that they may need to have. You have the language instructions and all that, and planning ahead, preview the assignment. It does walk you through. There's a lot of hand holding when it comes to core knowledge, but as you can see, there is a bit of prep, as I've been discussing. Facilitate discussion. So here is like suggested prompts. So for pages 2 and 3, how will you summarize the scene referred to in this title? Were you ever in a situation like this one in the scene? How did you decide what to do? What is your experience with jumping or diving into water? Does it feel different from different heights? And so on. Here you have like additional supports, ideas, especially if you're have different learning disabilities or anything like that. You will see some points of references on the side, and then you will also have some sample responses if you're not sure what you're looking for your student. Again, this continues on giving you exactly what prompts you may be asking as they're reading it, instead of just handing them over and saying, okay, narrate whatever you feel is important. And that may be a valid option for you. All right, so you saw the storyline. Now you have the actual lesson. So this is lesson 1. It reiterates this is a 3-day or projected 3-day lesson. Here is no previous lessons for framework for this. It does tell you what the next lesson is. So this is your actual lesson plan here, building towards NGSS. What students will do. So you have your objective. We've talked about this nonstop. I have said how important I feel it is when a curriculum includes what is the objective, what I am looking for from this lesson, and what is the end goal, what students will figure out. So that is spelled out for you. And then again, here's the prompts, sample responses, key idea, and then here is further breakdown. So you have, again, this is for a classroom settings. There is slideshows that is provided for you if you want to go ahead and use that. There is materials that is going to tell you what to do. These are all like regular classroom types of materials, mostly set the stage. Like we have like some stuff where like we just got 2 of the cars and like knocked them in together, and we discussed all that, and we went through all that too. So brainstorming, the phenomena, share and compare. See, like some of this stuff you're going to be able to easily like just cross off and streamline it for a homeschool setting. All right, so it has every part like just broken down, and then right here you'll see this is end of day 1. So this is actually the day 1 right here. Okay, that's where you stop. That's it. This is your next day, and then this is your next day. Okay, so you're talking about like the last day, ask students to review the norms again and select a norm to focus on for class today. Revisit factors and variables for poster, driving question boards and ideas, and I'll show you that after we finish with this. Again, this is like breaking it down exactly what to do. So if you're someone that does not care for open-ended curricula, which I share a lot of those as well, then you can in theory follow something like this if you don't mind planning it a bit. Okay, so you have the material list listed in this format as well, so you don't have to look at it in like a little abbreviation portions per day. You can just get everything you need ahead of time for the entire lesson, and look at it from here. So material preparations, and even tells you how long it will take you in theory to gather materials, and it also points to you that there's online resources for that. Again, this tells you all that. It also shows you examples of how you would set this up, and you have this as well, some safety precautions, setting the stage, learning plan. It continues on. All right, so now this is giving you like for each section details. So a lot of people get scared when they look at the teacher guide, but a lot of this information is repeated over and over again, but in different views. There's the whole storyline view, then there's the week view, and or like the 3-day view, and then there's like day by day view. So when it looks like a lot of it actually is repeated, just in more detail. Then you even have here science notebook, and we'll show you that in just a second, and then additional guidance. You know, again, this if you have a board or things like that you want to do. And that is basically what you're looking at with the teacher guide and how you're actually teaching this. So now the next 2 parts is going to be brief. Okay, so this is the student procedure guide that I mentioned before. And this, again, you can purchase. This is also, if I remember correctly, inexpensive to purchase printed. And you have all the student procedures that you saw in your teacher guide. It's all spelled out here, but this is what you hand over to your student to follow independently. And this is written in a format that is very easy to follow, in my opinion. You have the guiding question or the driving phenomenon, then turn and talk if you're going to have a collaborative point of your lesson or with class. Again, you can go ahead of time and cross off anything that would not work for your family dynamics. Then writing and science, think about the collision you have heard about or experienced as you brainstorm other collisions. List collisions where objects were damaged during a collision on a red index card. List collisions where objects were surprisingly not damaged in a green index card. And it just makes it interactive so they can visually see and not just explain or not just watch a video, but they're actually involved in you know, exploring the idea. And again, that is what I talked about, phenomena based. So we talked about that with Savas and all that jazz too. You know, and even Oak Meadow does that too. So look at your cards on your own with a partner. If you do that part, again, that is something that you may not do. And then here it continues on with all the driving points of what they're supposed to be doing, sharing initial models, and all the different steps. And you would tell them, you know, where to stop, and that will tell you in the teacher guide how much they would do each day. But that's just the example of the procedure guide. Now for your student work pages, and this is again where you would see this not necessarily in your early grades. This is specific with the procedure guides that go with the Open SciEd collaboration, and that's why I mentioned there is a difference. And lastly, you have the work pages. So again, this is going to model the procedure guide, and you're going to have the same table of contents, so they'll be able to easily find their lessons. This is something, if you don't want to print yourself, you can either use a notebook. So you have here, for example, the work pages are very varied, basically similar to their language arts. So it's not going to be the same type of thing every single day, which can become very redundant too. So for some students prefer the predictability, like my youngest actually. So you have what two objects collided. So this is where they're documenting their hands-on experiments, their hands-on activities, where they're organizing their thoughts, or any kind of prompts that they have been given is going to be on their work pages. So in this scenario, from A, B, or C, what damage was in this collision. For example, you have objects, and this is all under lesson 1. Everything I printed was lesson 1. Okay, so you can see consistently what it looked like. We have object interactions during the collision, changes we could see, interactions we cannot see, and then details that. So my youngest that did this alongside with oak meadow, because sometimes like I didn't have all everything readily available for the stuff that's said in oak meadow, but a lot of the subjects like coincided so very well that we did this instead to go along with it. And then he really enjoyed doing the readers. They didn't always match up, but I did the extra legwork to match things up and just to make it like a richer experience. We do more than one science. We always have. You do not need to do that though, like at all. Don't do as I do. Okay. You can definitely just stick to one thing, and this is solid on its own. Exploring horizontal collisions, and here are the two colliding objects, and then you have like, you know, teaching them also how to diagram these things and go from there. So you have this, and then if you have anything like the vocabulary and things like that, that is something that I had him write in his science notebook. I only had grade 8. I just used grade 8 as an example, but every 6, 7, and 8 follows the same format. So once you understand one level, you understand them all. So this is where I hope that you could see the difference of how it looks in relations to the lower level. So this obviously is similar. Obviously is going to be more in depth. Obviously you're going to dive deeper, but there is a lot of exploration, analytical type of thinking. There is the work pages, there's the procedure guides, and all that. So that is where you see a little different with the lower levels, and because the way that it's formatted follows that Open SciEd. If you are interested in seeing more in depth about Open SciEd itself, I will link that video down below. It is a lengthy one. It is webinar style. I mean, obviously this was a lengthy one too. I'm just giving you a quick glance at the other readers, just because I know it's easier for people to decide, okay, do I want to purchase that, or can I just use this digitally? Is this worth me printing myself? Because it's available for free. So honestly, if you just want to do the cost of what printing and paper is, you can definitely do that. And because they're like kind of driving force type of questions, your supplies are very easy to gather. You know, it's things that usually you have at home, like it had a postcard, and you grab two objects and, you know, made them collide, that you discussed it. I mean, it goes more in depth than that, obviously. And the critical thinking part of this is, I felt like it was a really great driving force for this. I was excited about integrating this. I had already had a different plan, but I decided to add this into it because we've used Open SciEd for a few years. And when I realized that Core Knowledge used Open SciEd in their middle school as a framework, then I got really excited because that just made it more easier for me to implement, because, you know, their formatting of things makes it easier to implement. So I was already very familiar with the course, because it's basically, like I said, Open SciEd dressed up. So that's how I ended up doing this. But I had already Oak Meadow in hand. I was not gonna waste that, because, you know, that's still a solid curricula and an investment in itself as well. So I hope that this helped. Obviously, I also have experience with Open SciEd in high school, but I just wanted to focus here on the Core Knowledge middle school science. I know this is not going to be for everyone because of the prep work and all that jazz, but I wanted to help you demystify it a little bit, hopefully, that help clarify, even though you see a big teacher guide for each of the units, that a lot of the information is repeated. It's just put in more and more detail, and some of the information is not going to be applicable for you at home. It may be, but not always. I hope this was helpful to you. I will see you guys next time. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Rush things, but I don't wanna wait for